And we should be live now. So, yay! Uh, okay. So, welcome everybody. Um, oh, you know what? That's not extremely helpful. I've got an issue here. We're not. We're live on YouTube. It's still kind of hanging out for Twitch. Says sending data, but Twitch hasn't responded yet. But I just realized something, and I'm actually gonna. There we go. We're live on both. I need to fix something though, really quick. So I need to, let's see here. I have realized that, um, no, no. Anyway, I've realized that I'm sharing the GM screen, not the camera screen. So I don't really want to do that one. So let me fix that. You know, yeah, it is, it is, yeah, there we go. That's the right one. Make this all pro. There we go. All right, so we're gonna do this really quick. All right, so let me start connecting there. All right, that's exactly what we wanted there. So we got camcorder there. So with our map. All right, yeah, so we are on Verces. So let's give uh, the more or less recap of what happened last week. Last week was a super exciting session of shopping, upgrading the ship, everyone buying equipment. Our delightful captain decided to take off with the newfound burden of realizing that he is now the captain. Decided to take off and try to procure a job that will uh, pay your expenses for traveling back to Absalon Station and possibly further. You guys, if you remember, were invited back to Absalon Station by Perry. He wanted to go over a few things with you and invite you to meet some of his contacts. And you guys basically had roughly about a week of downtime to celebrate, shop, and do what you need to do. We found some uh, interesting news. So, if you remember, we had met the plague rats previously on Eox, and the plague rats were a street gang that basically said, "Hey, they're a Yosoki street gang." They said, "Hey, you pay us 10,000 credits. We'll give you 10 months to pay it." And we basically won't attack you while you're in this place. You guys decided the bribe sounded good at the time, and so now you've got connections with them. Uh, Zoe actually invited you to participate in the Byzine run. on Retheta. So you guys had an invite to that. Um, Clint and Tybin decided to go off. Tybin was going to go off to do a little bit more mercenary work, and Clint decided he wanted to go with him and train and see if he could improve his combat abilities a little bit more. Dr. Gray and Stephen Gray decided to leave. Apparently, the plague experiment that Stephen Gray was working on was something that Dr. Gray felt that there was an urgent need for him to participate in. He didn't really want to go into it much further, so they left. And Zayed basically congratulated you and taken off, and nobody has seen Captain Vito's brother Denegan since the tramp stamp tattoo incident. So that is kind of the rundown of everything that we kind of had going on. So we're in Verces right now. There's been rumors going on that trade caravans have been attacked by dust mantas. And these dust mantas are just these huge, think about a huge manta ray that kind of like swims through the sand, kind of like a sandworm would from Dune. They just kind of like they're able to just swim through the sand and kind of pop out. And normally, you'll occasionally get them, often you'll get them solo, occasionally get them in small pods, but apparently there's just been numerous large pods attacking the trade caravans. And they're basically just saying, "Hey, it's really dangerous out there. This is really unusual, and we don't know why." And so that has been kind of the goings on this planet. Um, Cal accepted a job to smuggle a little bit of experimental cybernetics that are probably less than legal over to Absalon Station. Uh, And let's see, what else do we have? We had Gustav wandering around during the festivities, pocketing some extra coin. That was kind of fun and or interesting. He's getting pretty good at sneaking around and lifting stuff from people. Yep, yep. So generally the information that you have is just that the sand mantas themselves are unusual. Just the sheer volume of them is very unusual. And these things are like they're essentially like each one's about the size of a truck. They're pretty good size. So having a giant swarm of them attacking you just means it's essentially suicide if you were to try to go out into the wilds on foot right now. Yeah. And that's kind of where we left off. So um getting back into it, the captain has come back and rejoined you, and as the captain has rejoined you, he has a little something pinned to his chest. Uh, no, that would be very interesting to come back strapped with a bomb to his chest, but nope. He Nope, nope. He can hide it if he wants to, but he's gonna kind of come back and inform you guys. The captain has been deputized, so Captain Gillum is now a steward officer. So essentially, when he was off trying to figure out what he could do, he was trying to make some initial contacts, and the stewards offered him a essentially a deputy role. What they will do is uh, the stewards operate in the packed worlds. So anything happens off the pack worlds, they tend to go with outside parties, mercenaries to get things done. Well, what they want to do is they want the captain to basically be uh, kind of like an envoy to uh, those outside organizations. So they kind of want to use him as a go-between, someone who can make those connections with the outside mercenary groups, or maybe even travel with and advise those outside mercenary groups, and basically allow um, the stewards to extend their reach beyond the the Pact Worlds. Yeah, and being that he's kind of just an initiate, they will, ask him to do the occasional task just to kind of prove that he's loyal and, just kind of get miscellaneous little work done here or there. But a lot of the stuff that they will want him to do, it's kind of like, well, if you go rogue or something happens, we'll essentially just deny you were officially with us. So he's not, he's kind of half on the roster. But he does have a deputy's a badge for the steward, so he has some form of, you know, minor identification showing that he's working with them in some capacity. And what they have asked him to do is to simply transport two prisoners. These are white collar prisoners that need to go to Absalon Station. So essentially, he's secured 500 credits plus all expenses, so just straight 500 credits for just transferring two prisoners to Absalon. And just the only deal is, you're supposed to, keep them separated from each other and don't allow any real interaction so that they can't, necessarily they can't communicate back and forth or somehow send messages back and forth. They want them separated. They were arrested separately, but they need to be transported for trial. So and so yeah, Captain agreed to that trade. So you guys have two VIPs who are going to be going with you that are under lockdown and essentially expenses paid back to Absalon. Uh, with that, the captain has another contact that he met in the form of Zano. Zano, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Okay. So yeah, the captain and Zano essentially met while he was looking for work. Zano said that he was essentially looking for transport off a planet and possibly some work in the future. And they kind of just both of them being Lashunta and kind of both aimless right at this point, hit it off a little bit and decided to go ahead and proceed and bring him on the crew since we ended up having a few crew members leave. This kind of helps fill up the roster, making sure that we uh, can get uh, can get a little bit more done. So Let's see here. So with that being said, we've got Xano joining the crew. Does anybody have anything that they wish to accomplish still here on Verces? What was that, Ghost One? Yeah, yeah. The illicit goods are already loaded up on the ship. They're in the smuggling compartment. Uh, yeah, and you guys have your VIPs that are essentially waiting to be loaded. They're in kind of like holding cells right now at the docks, and you guys are supposed to escort them, each one at a time into quarters. And then when you get to Absalon, you're supposed to escort them to steward officers that are going to be there that'll take them again separately. And the big instructions are to just not let them communicate in any way. They're not like they're Lashunta, both of them. So, yep. So the good news is that your two quarters are separated far enough that they will not necessarily be able to do telepathic communication, but you essentially just don't want them in the same room where they can communicate with each other. They can try to communicate with you, but essentially, uh, the only way that they're really going to be able to communicate with you is if they know that you're there. It's so you just more or less just try to keep them from seeing and communicating with each other. Okay. You guys get there, and the first one is his name's Al, and you take him and go ahead and start loading him onto the ship. Um, let's see here. Captain, roll me a culture check. So you go ahead and doesn't matter, whatever. Okay. You go ahead and load him onto the ship. Uh, take him to his room, and these are essentially VIP rooms. They're kind of shielded against invasive prying, things like that, but also with that same thing, they're shielded so that you can't easily communicate, through the walls and everything. So essentially, the only time that these guys are going to be able to communicate with you is when when you're seeing them face to face. So, uh, as you guys are uh, as you guys are loading them in, Al's not making much of a point to talk with anybody. He's just kind of, keeping his mouth closed and just gets led onto the ship. Uh, the next one, when you start loading him on there, he's Joe. Go ahead, Captain, make another culture check. Same thing. Okay. Yep, very, very consistent. So yeah, you notice that Joe looks very much like Al. Like they look like they could be brothers. So you go ahead and take Joe. Joe is the exact opposite. With Joe, he is just going off on you guys. He's just like, I'm innocent. You guys are making a huge mistake here. I haven't done crap. You've got no right to take me off my planet. You know, my lawyer's gonna, sue you guys for this and everything. Like Joe is threatening you guys. Uh, Joe's threatening you guys, endlessly. But he's not being violent. Uh, Technically, Cal, you could smack him if you wanted to, but it wouldn't probably go down very well with the stewards who were there. They generally uh, don't like, mishandling prisoners. So, um, they are not. They're bound with like leg shackles, but not their hands aren't bound. So he's basically got like loose. Uh, you just think about like loose chains to the point where he can't run or anything. But other than that, he's not really bound. And even yeah, even those are put on. They're put on fairly lightly. These are white collar criminals. They're not expected to be security problems, which is why you guys are being asked to transport them, and they aren't going in like a prison ship. Also, they are the ones that have to pay for their own transport. So technically, they are paying you. It's just part of their deal is that they have to pay for all the expenses of them being prosecuted because of these particular crimes. So with that, uh, you guys have these guys both loaded onto the ships. I'm assuming you guys go ahead and do the lockdown procedures to lock the rooms so they can't just like wander about the ship. Is there is there anything else that you want to take care of while we're here on Verses? Yep, yep. Go ahead and sense motive. Holy poop. Uh, Cal, you've got a feeling that he's not he's not very legitimate. He seems like yeah, he probably did it. Yeah, he's probably just more like making a show than actually upset. Captain, you're extremely convinced. You can like just probing into his mind. He's just like he's got that whole rat on a sinking ship feeling to him. Like he's got that sense of real desperation and anger. And there isn't really a feeling of guilt, but there's definitely zero feeling of um, like woe is me, this I can't believe I'm being set up or framed. He's just like wanting to get out of this situation. So with that, we can go ahead and, like I said, if there's anything else you guys want to do, we can take care of it. Otherwise, we can leave Verces and start heading to Absalon Station. Okay. Yep. So you go ahead. The rooms are VIP suites, so you don't really have any monitoring equipment there. But you could pretty easily come up with some sort of a improvised listening device and just set it on the door. It could also be like a motion detector that would detect if the door suddenly opened. So kind of dual purpose. If the door opens or if uh, you know if it's basically just monitoring the door constantly, just like if you had an ear pressed to it. If that'll work for you. I mean, if you want to do it, if you want to go in so that they know that you're doing it, you could do that, but you'd have to actually go into the suite and modify the panel inside there. But if you want to do it without them necessarily knowing that you're modifying things, the panel right now is set to lockdown. So essentially, the person inside the room can't use the panel. But if you wanted to go in, you could, go in and wire up the panel from the inside. That's the so that they wouldn't be able to do it, but you'd be, kind of like turning on the speaker. Um, maybe with some time, you could figure out a way to activate the listening inside. But right now, it would be pretty quick and easy for you to toss on a little listening device, at least on the hallway out there, on both doors, and then that also works as a motion sensor. Um, no, No, the way that the guest quarters work is the only option is if they're not on lockdown, they can essentially set a do not disturb, but they don't have any way to keep the crew from the ship from getting on. If Yeah, that's what's already happened. So when you guys put them on lockdown, you're essentially going up to the control panel on the outside and just setting like a lockdown mode where you don't want the person inside to be able to get in or out. And so the only way to do that is to release the lock on the door. You would do kind of the same thing if you had, let's say you had pirates attacking the vessel, and you didn't want them to potentially get caught in the crossfight, and you didn't want to make it easy for the pirates to go in and start kidnapping anybody or using them as, human shields or something. You could just go in and set it as lockdown, and then no one can get in or out without, a member of the actual crew or you could even set if the captain wanted to, he could set it so that it's on lockdown for him. But right now, it's on lockdown for any crew member. So anyone in that's a member of the crew can open and close the door, but people who aren't members of the crew can't. Um, and because they're on lockdown like this, you guys are gonna basically be able to check in on them, but they also can't, initiate comms out. So they're basically just stuck behind that door. And like I said, Cal, you could probably figure out something. The challenge is if you want to be able to go in there and listen. Um, the way that things are set up is that it, it would almost require you to go in and kind of like reprogram the chip that's inside of there. And doing that while everything's up and running is a little bit of a challenge. If you want to go in and then essentially shut it down, reboot it, reprogram it, and bring it back up, you could do that. They wouldn't necessarily know what you're doing, but it would involve a little bit of an invasive procedure to do that. So I'll leave that up to you if you decide you want to do that before you guys take off. Okay. Yep. You can go ahead and do that anytime you like. UPVs are pretty easy to get your hands on pretty much everywhere in the packed world. So, and in general, what I would say is that on um, you guys are going to have a certain amount of UPVs, probably just in general on the ship for miscellaneous items, repair, things like that that you need. I'm always going to assume there's maybe 1,000 credits of UPVs there, and that's one of those things where if you've got extra space on your ship, taking some credits and converting them to UPVs can be a good way of making money, especially if you're heading from the pack worlds out. But while you're wandering around the pack worlds themselves, you're not really going to make too much of a profit transporting UPVs. But anytime you're heading out, right, right. But anytime you're heading out of the packed worlds, loading up on UPBs rather than traveling with credits is a good way to essentially turn a little bit of a profit on your money. So, with that, uh, again, anything else that needs to be done on Verces before we take off? Okay, not hearing anything. So, you guys go ahead and you're starting to pull away from planet. So, it's going to be um, pretty pretty mild, relaxing trip. Um, it's in system Absalon Station. Let's see here. You guys are actually pretty close to Absalon Station right now, so it's only about a day away. So you've got 1 day to travel there. If anyone needed to make any adjustments to equipment or wanted to rig anything up or do anything like that, you've got the time to do it. Otherwise, it's let's say about 28 hours essentially till uh, you hit Absalon, and it seems to be pretty smooth sailing right now. Yeah, so everyone feel free to interrogate Xano. Well, the essentially the ship is set up to be a lot higher on the defense than the offense. Uh, getting a quick look around of the ship from what you can see, it like just inspecting the cargo areas. I mean, I'm assuming you're gonna just kind of wander around. They're gonna give you the full tour of the ship. When you go into the cargo areas, that cargo area is about one half the size, probably even less than half the size, what you would expect a normal cargo area to be. It's very unusually small. Uh, you've got VIP guest quarters. You have um, you have a recreation suite. So there's a gym that people can use, and there's a tech workshop there. The crew kind of shares with you that their focus has really been to keep everything high on the defensive side. It's got far stronger shields than a normal ship of its size. Fairly fast engines, um, good good armor, but uh, the real odd thing that stands out to you, and no one really seems to kind of go into in depth on it, but the cargo hold seems like it should be, more than twice as big as it actually is. All right. And let's see here. Uh, are you able to see the ship set up? Okay, let me stop sharing and then oh, there's the lead foot. Let's see. So, and then I can let me pull open the stream here and PC ships. There we go. the lead foot. So we've got the current setup shown on stream, so that if anyone wants to see the details of it, it's there. But yeah, so we're set up with a coil gun on a turret, high explosive missile launcher loaded on the front, Mark 10 thrusters, which are as fast as you can get without starting to get any piloting penalties. Um, Mark 1 trinode computer, so I believe that's +1 to 3 people. Mark 3, yeah, Mark 3 armor, Mark 4 defenses, so decent armor, pretty good missile defense. Like I said, the main amenities are 2 luxurious guest quarters, so they're essentially high-end VIP suites. You guys are not typically, transporting, um, uh, refugees or, uh, you know, uh, bulk passengers or anything like that. Typically, if you're transporting someone, it's usually a VIP. Recreation suite. You've got a DC-50 smuggler compartment, which essentially that's why the cargo hold looks so small. More than half of it's designed to essentially be shielded and hide, give like lots of places to hide stuff so you can transport illicit goods a lot easier. And tech workshop, so you can repair armor and equipment. So. And there's a good deal of debate whether or not the crew really should keep the recreation suite with the gym, or if they should switch over to something a little bit more, how would you say, a little bit more practical. But Gustav is very adamant that he likes working out, and he does not want his gym to go away. If you guys got rid of the gym, you could definitely have enough in the crew quarters to get a decent workout. I mean, you can get good body weight workout if you plan stuff right. So it just happens to be that it's kind of it's a fancy gym. You've got like treadmills and ellipticals, and you've got TVs and things set up. It's set up like you would have in a like a 24 hour. Yeah, it's like a Yeah, that's essentially it. The only real entertainment you guys have on board is that. So your ship is not necessarily set up the best for super luxury. Essentially, it's just luxury accommodations. But if whoever is coming is expected to be able to entertain themselves, whether it's, they've, got some movies that they're watching themselves or whatever, but you're not a cruise ship by any means. You're not expected to be entertaining your guests. No, there's no real map for the ship right now. It's kind of is what it is, and it's in flux. It always, you know, the way that these things go. Essentially, the ship levels up as you guys level up. So when you guys all hit level 4, the ship hits level 4, uh, and so it's changing pretty regularly. So all the stuff that you guys have on there, the next time you level up is just likely to change. So yeah, if you want to. Yeah, a brig could be a possibility. There's lots of stuff you could do. This time it happened to work out because they didn't really want to transport. Yeah, they didn't want them together. They wanted them to be able to be separated. Having it on one ship is just a little bit more convenient. Uh, but yeah, for this particular instance, it works out. But yeah, you guys could always switch it out to be a brig, or there's all sorts of different ways you can transport. So, um, yep. All right. So, continuing on, you guys go ahead and you start closing in on Absalon Station. As you're getting closer, you guys are so close you didn't really need to um, you didn't need to go ahead and activate your drift engine. You're only a day away by standard space. But you do end up getting a signal. The signal is from Perry, and you guys are about a few hours out from Absalon. And the message from Perry was a little bit urgent, which is not, you haven't really gotten a lot of urgent messages from him. But he said, when you get on station, I need to see you immediately. Just let me know how far out you are, and I'll have someone meet you and drive you right here. Okay. Yeah, you go ahead and send that. The message will be there in just a few minutes versus you guys probably have a little bit more than an hour to go. Uh, so as you're arriving, let's do this. Absalon Station, you hail Absalon Station and get clearance to land, and they say prepare for your routine scan. And your routine scan returned nothing. Feel free to dock. They give you guys a landing bay, and you're able to pull the ship into the landing bay. And you can see essentially a private car sitting there at the landing bay when you arrive, with a driver who's ready to take you guys all over to Perry's office. As you land too, the stewards are there. Captain's able to message them. Yep. And again, it's kind of the same story as last time. Al comes out first, and he's silent. He's just not talking. And then when he's taken away and taken inside, and just a few minutes later, when Joe's being brought out, it's the same thing. He's just yelling, "Yeah, I'm innocent. I didn't do it. This is a sham," and all of that. And that's essentially, they're sticking very much to the same playbook. So, um, yeah, good crook, bad crook. So, so one of them's keeping his mouth shut, the other one's yapping up a storm. But they go ahead and they get taken off on there. Um, Speaking of crooks, Cal, you have a delivery to make on planet. Do you want to carry that with you, or do you want to try to leave it on the ship? You haven't met your contact here yet, but it's essentially uh, it's small enough that you could carry it in. Let's say it's kind of like a large suitcase, so you could just have it loaded into the car and essentially brought with you if you wanted to. But that's entirely up to you if you'd rather leave it on the ship or take it with. Yep. Okay. So you guys go ahead and just do the standard lockdown of the ship and take on off to see Perry. So as you're doing that, Um, the driver goes ahead and uh, takes you over to Perry's office. Perry's in has an office in one of the towers just outside of the Lore Spire complex on Absalon Station. Uh, Perry kind of quickly ushers you guys in and looks over at Zano and says, "Who's this?" Okay. Ah, you lost some. Was someone? Oh, yeah, that you'll find that that happens a lot. Um, and so just to give you an idea, let's see here. I'm gonna try to find and let's share that. There you go. Perry is a lawyer. Perry's also an uplifted bear. So, uh, picture a grizzly bear with cybernetic implants to make him essentially super intelligent and able to do pretty much everything an extremely large, like 700-pound person could do. So he's like, bigger than Andre the Giant, and he could easily just bite your whole head in his mouth. But also probably smarter than, any of you guys. They're just a ridiculously uh, intelligent and more or less brutal species, but they're not basic or animalistic at all, and they're able to control themselves just like any other sentient being would. So that's Perry, and just whatever you do, don't call him Barry. That's kind of the only advice that everyone gives you. Um, so so yeah, there you go. So that's Perry, and so yeah, he kind of looks at the new guy, kind of shrugs it off, and continues on. So what he says is that uh, Zai contacted him 2 days ago and said that when she arrived on planet, the her apartment had been broken into. Nothing was taken, but it was obvious that uh, someone had been going through her things, and he hasn't heard from her since. He was supposed to meet up with her this morning. Hasn't heard from her. He sent communications. He sent a driver over to her house to just go check and see if uh, you know if she was there, if she was all right. And when he did, he found her house, uh, the door completely open. There were signs of a struggle, and she's not there. And he said it's even if she were on the run, it would be quite common for her to at least, you know, put out a message or something, let him know some way. But he said it's really odd to have her just disappear and not say anything. So he would like you guys to possibly uh, take a look as Zano drops off the connection. So yeah, he'd like you guys to take a look and see if you can figure out exactly, what happened to her. And he's sorry to kind of spring this on you because this was supposed to be a completely different meeting, but all of a sudden this came up and it was a lot more urgent. Yeah, already dropped off the passengers. Yep. Perry. So Perry was going to introduce you guys to a contact that he had here, and he basically kind of covers that. He says he has a contact over at the Starfinder Society that was a friend of the captain's that was interested in meeting you guys. Uh, and he goes on to say that he uh, is a member of the Starfinder Society. They're one of his clients. He does a lot of legal work for them. And that Captain Vito was actually a member of the Starfinder Society as well. So yeah, he says they're a fairly decent organization to work with, and he wanted to kind of get you guys your introduction. So what he does is he basically just hands you a letter of introduction that you can use when you're ready to go over there. But he said right now he didn't feel like it was appropriate to continue with the meeting with this situation going on. So he went ahead and just told them, that he'll send you guys. You guys will come over whenever you're ready to do that, and that was fine. Okay. Give me one moment here. Yep. His air quote friend. Yeah, just looking to see. Yeah, Zaya's helped you guys out. I'm looking to see if Zano is going to be able to pop back on. I don't want to try to move too far forward with them offline like this. So, uh, uh, yep, yep. So, yeah, we'll send out a quick message here. So, let's see. Yeah, I can do that. Let's grab the stream. Yeah. So, yep. So we'll I just tossed him the link to the stream so that he can pop on there in a second. And let's see, let me know if you're able to see the stream. And then we'll give him just a second to see if he can pop on, and then we can continue on with the Zai stuff. So yeah, what are the thoughts right now? So you guys so far have had prisoners dropped off. You have some illicit goods that you need to make your contact and uh, get that stuff delivered. You have Zai missing, and you have a contact over at the Starfinder Society. Yeah, essentially essentially the time frame was you were supposed to, try get them there securely and, preferably within the next week or so. So you're getting there, but you're pushing up on the deadline. So you'll want to definitely, if you're planning on leaving station, you'll want to make sure that they're off before you leave station. But there's no urgent push to get rid of them, other than you have them on your ship and you're responsible for them. So the sooner you hand them off, the sooner you're no longer responsible for them. Yep. Yes, you do. Let's go ahead and do that now. Where is this party sheet? Inventory. Um, 500 credits. There we go. 100 credits to everybody. Hey, there we go. You hear us okay, Zeno? Yep, no big deal. Yeah. Uh, okay, so what you've missed. You guys got paid your 100 credits. Uh, for 500 credits total, five of you, so 100 credits each. For transferring the prisoners. Uh, did you catch the part with Perry and Zai? Okay. So what Perry was bringing you on to say is that Zai was the deceased Captain Vito's friend with air quotes. She's a drow uh, of uh, particular, somewhat aggressive nature, and she was the captain. Captain Vito, who's the deceased captain, used to always call her his friends. And every time he'd say friend, he'd use little air quotes, just to kind of emphasize that. And he uh, the crew was never sure if he was saying like friends like they weren't really friends or friends like they were more than friends, but he'd always use the air quotes and always kind of left it ambiguous. Apparently, she had informed uh, Perry that her house had been broken into when she returned from visiting you guys on Verses. Nothing was taken, but things were disturbed in the house. And then she was supposed to meet him when she didn't show up. Perry sent a driver over there to go check on her, and the driver reports that her house was left completely open and there were signs of a struggle, but she wasn't there. And that she was supposed to meet him, I believe it was yesterday, and then he sent the driver over this morning when he couldn't get a hold of her, and that's what he found. And he said it's just unusual. If she were taking off, at the very least, she might send him a message saying, "Hey, I'm in trouble," or something. But he said there was no word from her, so he wanted you guys to look into why she was missing. So, uh, yeah. So yeah. So essentially, when to kind of sum up what had happened previously, the ship was sabotaged when you guys were going off to race in order to kind of win your ship back. The captain left the crew, his ship um, in his will, and his brother had the option if he wanted to contest it, that he actually had to beat the crew, and if he could beat the crew, he could take the ship. But if he couldn't beat the captain's crew, then the crew essentially got to keep their ship. And when they came back to their ship after the reading of the will, the ship had been basically smashed up. All the parts had been destroyed. And Zai went out and fronted about 10,000 credits of her own money and called in a bunch of favors to get you guys loaner parts to let you kind of get over to EOX. And then she's arranged for you guys to go on Zoe's game show in order to win replacement parts for your ship. But in order to do that, she had to agree to go on a date with Zoe, which was something, a date with an undead was not exactly what her it wasn't exactly her favorite situation, but she basically pulled in the favor for you guys to try to get you there. And then she met you on Verces. You guys were able to return the parts that you had essentially borrowed and get that back to her. And she brought them back to Absalon. And when she came back to Absalon, that's when she realized that someone had been going through her apartment. So it's kind of the catch up on who she is and what the whole situation was with her. So yeah, that's the situation right now. And then we ran down the things that were going on in station. So you guys have delivered your prisoners. You have some illicit goods that need to be dropped off. You have the situation with Zai where you need to figure out, what happened to her. Or at least Perry asked you to look into it. Perry also gave you guys you were supposed to have a meeting with a member of the Starfinder Society, and instead he just gave you a letter of recommendation, which is going to let you get into the Starfinder Society and meet with the same person who you were supposed to meet with previously, just at on your own pace now versus having a set up meeting today. So, all right, and that's it. So you guys have those things to follow up on. So, what is the order of priority? What do you guys want to do? Yeah, well, Perry goes ahead and sends you a driver. Go ahead. He said that he would like you guys to go in there first, and then after you're done, then he can call in the authorities. But if there's any evidence that you guys can glean, he would rather have it in your hands, or at least give you guys the first shot before uh, the incompetent cops come in and screw everything up. There you go. So yeah, so no one's been well, and really honestly, there's no real. Uh, I mean, there's indications that there was a problem, but there's no actual missing person. I mean, it hasn't even been 24 hours since she was supposed to be there. So, he could go ahead and report that she's missing, but chances are the cops aren't going to do anything about it until it's been a few days anyway. Um, so there is that. You guys, um, let's see here. Yeah, he goes ahead and gives you guys the driver and says, the driver can take you wherever you want to go, so you don't need to worry about transport. While you're on Absalon, he'll get you to anywhere. Uh, and Zai did have so essentially Zai is the owner of the captain's apartment. If you guys remember when in the captain's will, one of the other things was Zai. It sounds like she's all good natured and helping you guys, but also the Denegan, the captain's brother, ended up fighting with her over her inheritance of the will because the captain split his assets, essentially gave you guys the ship and gave her the remainder of his assets. And so when you guys essentially won the ship, you also won her section of assets that came from the captain. So including the apartment where you guys used to live. So she actually owns that now. And you haven't really spoken with her whether she was going to allow you guys to stay there, or maybe charge you guys rent or whatever for it, or if she was just going to take it and rent it out to someone else. You don't really know. But you guys will have all of your any personal effects that you have there. If you want to take them and move them onto the ship, you guys are free to do that too, assuming that you don't know exactly what's going on with her if you didn't want to leave any of that stuff on planet. But you, for the most part, you guys carried a lot of stuff with you. But if there was anything you happened to leave there that you wanted to take, you could do that as well. So, okay. So, all right. So, all right. And all right. So we got that. So are you guys gonna go ahead and go to Zai's place then? Okay. You take the vehicle over there. Uh, let's see. Let's have everybody go ahead and roll me investigation checks, but roll them in the tower. You should all. Oh, yeah, sorry. What do we do then? Perception? Yeah, roll me perception checks in the tower. I'm too used to 5e. Let's see. Okay. All right. Um, here's. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm just gonna come bring you a mouse because it's been like a month, dude. Amazon is a thing, but yeah, I've got like five of them. I'll bring you an extra one. Yeah, yeah, I know. That's it's okay. So, Gustav, you and Zano both got the same thing. So I'm gonna start off with Cal. Cal, you walk. Yeah. Okay. So let's start off with Cal. Cal, you walk in. Um, you're not really noticing anything, uh, out of the ordinary. It looks like the apartment's a little bit messy, but sign of a struggle. Yeah, you're like, I guess it could look like someone, you know, dropped some papers on the ground or something, but you're not really catching much of anything. Feel free. You do notice though that she has cameras and a security system. So feel free to toss me. Yep, yep. So if you want to start going into doing some computers checks, feel free to give me a computers check on there to go ahead and take a look into that security system. Um, let's see. Next one up. Captain, going in there. You do see that there's, a bit of a struggle, but you're having a hard time placing it. The exact, uh, you know, the exact situation isn't really standing out to you. You're just seeing that things are a little bit messy. Do you want to do anything in particular to research or help out? Okay. All right. So yeah, you can lend assistance to somebody then if you want. Ghost One, you can see, you can kind of trace through and see the signs of the struggle. You can see that there was a fight. It looks like somebody was thrown to the ground, and when they were thrown to the ground, they hit some furniture. The furniture was moved. Some papers that were on the furniture fell down. But that's about as far as you can take it. Um, so if you, yep. And then going up, Zano and Gustav, you guys both get just a very, very good sense of what went on here. It looks like someone was essentially hiding with their back to the wall. When Zai came walking through, they came up behind her and tried to choke her. She threw them. I mean, you can just see the situation very, very clearly. Like if you were in that situation, that is exactly how these things would have been disturbed in this particular way. You can see that she must have thrown them. When she threw them, they hit the furniture, pushed it to the side, dumped some papers. You can even see the footprints as her boots dug in and she turned, and it looks like she just went running out the door. You can see the little scuff on there of the twist and the turn. Um, you can see a few pieces of furniture shoved, like maybe the person that she threw went scrambling and went chasing after her, and that's about the extent of what you guys can, you know, draw the conclusions you can get. Really, there's no um, it's such a small space, and there's so little to go on. But that's both of you guys kind of just look at each other and you kind of come up with the exact same conclusion. You can roll if you wanted to try to roll survival. Survival would be more of your tracking. That's more like towards finding someone that's a particular boot size or um, uh, you know, anything like that. The medicine would be really difficult without seeing the person if there's no signs of, like if there was maybe signs of blood or something, you might be able to do that. But if there's no real signs of an injury, it's medicine's going to be kind of difficult. So yeah, yeah, there are some there's essentially like scuff marks that looked like basically her boot pivoted and ran off, but it's not actually like a boot print per se, just a scuff where you can see where her boot would have twisted and then pushed off. Um, so you're essentially seeing you're seeing like this whole arrangement of things. You kind of come up with, all right, based on the arrangement, based on, how this furniture was moved, where the papers fell, here's another chair that looks like it was pushed out of the way. There's little scuffs on the floor where you can see someone was slamming down on it. It wasn't just like slowly pushed. It looks like someone really just like was pushing hard on it when they left. There's like all these little scuff marks that look recent enough that you're able to kind of piece that together. Um, Gustav, you asked about reading the papers. Yeah, you can go ahead and read the papers. It seems to be a lot of the papers that were there seem to be assets from Captain Vito that were transferred over to Zai, and some of it are even personal effects from Captain Vito. It's there's lists of accounts, properties, things like that. But yeah, at this point, if you wanted to do any tracking, the tracking's going to be exceptionally difficult, but you can try a survival check to see if you can figure out kind of where it went. Um, Zano, as far as tracking the steps, you can see that they kind of went out, um, but you're not making much more than that. Gustav, an expert tracker. I mean, um, you can basically, you can follow, a hawk through a hurricane. You're a pretty good. You're able to really delve in and then just follow. You're able to see just the very slight outlines of the footprints. You can see what looks to be Zai's footprints going out, and essentially another pair of footprints, much larger, going out after her, and they seem to essentially be just from the stride difference. This person seems to be huge. I mean, you're guessing this was someone, well over 2 meters tall. So you're talking they might have been 6'8", something like that. Just someone really huge, sizable, much bigger than Zai, which is interesting because she was able to essentially, it looks like, toss them like a rag doll and start running off. There's no indication whether uh, they uh, whether that person caught her, but there is an indication uh, that they were there. And you also notice, just very casually, that there appears to be a second set of footprints that were heading out towards the door. Uh, it looks from the gait, it looks like it was a man. They were walking with more of a male gait than a female gait, and much smaller, a much more average size, but not running. There doesn't appear to be that running like the large one did. So there might have been actually a second person in the room. As far as, but when it gets outside, onto the street, it's been a few days. So essentially, as soon as you get outside of the apartment door, you've completely lost any track of the chase. Jumping back over to Cal. Cal, you're able to find the security system that Zai has in place, and you're able to kind of get in and get to the terminal, but it is locked down. Zai has some seriously uh, hardcore security tech going on here. Uh, this one might actually take a while. Your initial attempts, you're able to get to access it, but you notice it immediately. You're inside for about 30 seconds when an AI security protocol detects that you're not authorized and locks you out. So if you want to go ahead and get into it, you can try to take your time. You've got time, so you can try to take 20 if you want, and spend, about half hour or so, and try to really just kind of crack through that AI security protocol. Okay. Yep. Sure. hmm This is Zai's place. This is a different place. Then good old Nat one, Ghost Nat one. Yeah, he got he got a 10, so that's fine. You give him the aid. Yeah, Captain. Yeah, Captain, go ahead and give me a culture check in the tower, and I'll tell you what happens. All right, so Cal, you're gonna spend um, a bit of time. Yeah, you're gonna spend about an hour trying to just crack into the security on this thing. It's not going exceedingly well, but with some time, you're going to be able to eventually break into it. Um, Cap, yep. So, uh, Captain, you go through, you walk out, you talk to a few neighbors. What you're able to glean is that last night sometime there was apparently uh, a, they said that there was a couple of guys who were like running down the hallway yelling, and people didn't see Zai necessarily, but they did see these strange guys, and what they described was uh you know uh essentially a giant man, just he was human, but he was just absolutely just monstrously huge. Um and the other one was a shorter guy who walked by and gave a smile and a nod. Was not yelling like the big guy was. But what stood out about him was he was a drow. So and Zai, of course, was a drow. So he was, a blonde-haired drow. Just gave a dressed normally, at, average size. Gave a nice smile and a nod and went on. And that's all you were able to really get from it. So there was just a gigantic human and a drow. Um, yeah, you don't know if it's before they never saw Zai. So so. What do we got here? Back over to Cal. Cal, yeah, you're able to finally get in. You get past the AI. You end up getting, an admin level access to the security system, setting, a new user and password and everything. So you're able to, log back into this system essentially whenever you need to. Uh, Yep. So you've got root access into it. With that though, you go to last night and you go to the security footage, and then what you see is you see Zai come in, and then as she walks in, you see just as she gets to the point where everyone seems to be pointing out that there was a struggle, you see the video freeze, and after about 2 or 3 minutes, the video stops being frozen. You can see the signs of the struggle, and everything's everything's messed up. So basically, that it seems like someone has gone in and essentially, yeah, it seems like someone has gone in, hacked into it, and taken that 2 minutes of time and has basically put a single frame on there. And it, looking through, you don't see any backups. You don't see any connection out to external services or anything like that. There doesn't seem to be any other place where this might have been going. It just seems to be stored locally. It is pretty high end equipment, so it would be essentially very safe here. But there's no there's no that you can find. There's no sort of offsite backups or anything. So what you guys do have though is you have access to the apartment. So with access to the security system, you now have access to get into the apartment whenever you want. You can lock it, you can leave it open. You could pass whatever on to the authorities. You can pass it on to Perry and let him decide what he wants to include the authorities in on. Um, okay. So you go ahead and let Perry in on everything you know. Okay. So yeah, you give a description of a just a gigantic, like maybe 6'8" human that apparently was, running down the hallway screaming. A blonde-haired drow, average build, that basically gave the smile and the nod. That from what you guys can tell, she was, attacked by someone large, and that there was looks like there was someone else, smaller, just ever so faintly, that went out, on a much slower pace. So that seems to match everything that Gustav came up with from his description. No indication that Zai was captured, but um, it's uh, not. It doesn't look good if she hasn't reached out to anybody yet. Who does number two work for? Yep. So there was, like I said, no, the security footage was erased. Uh, you guys don't have a ton to go off of rate at this point. Uh, Perry's Perry's response is that he appreciates everything. You guys have given him more than enough information to go off of. Um, he said he's going to try to figure out the connections between this exceedingly large man and an average build blonde haired drow, and see if maybe he can kind of put the two of them together and figure out who they are. So he's gonna call in his connections and see if he can figure that part out for you. Um, but he says that, yeah, and then the idea that one of them is uh, a skilled hacker, or somebody is a skilled hacker. It doesn't even necessarily need to be one of them, but um, yeah. So yeah, he's well, it or if they were in there or someone that came in before them. Really. If I mean, uh, once someone has access into that system, I mean, they could even go go through and write a program that erases that and then wipes itself from the computer. There's all sorts of possibilities. So, um, yeah. So you're kind of at this point not sure exactly what's going on. Uh, Perry does say that he'll go ahead and call in the authorities to come in and take a look, and that you guys can take off, and he'll follow up with you when he's got a better lead on it. And that he definitely appreciates that. Uh, okay. So Zano, you said you wanted to look in the bedroom for something. Was there something in particular that you're looking for? Okay. Yeah, I mean, yep. I mean, you guys can go through and try to search the apartment for additional clues if you want to. Any additional searching that you do is just going to leave more essentially, the more time you spend in the apartment, the more clues you're going to leave to yourself, and you're going to cover up the clues that might go on to the investigation. But you guys can go through and decide how in depth you want to go through for searching the apartment. Right now, mhm. um, I I will tell you completely honestly, the search in the apartment, you guys got a 19. So Gustav's was like a 19 for searching the apartment. So he's and his tracking was exceptional too. I mean, you guys basically have gotten your high 20s, 30s DCs on everything. You've got pretty much what you think you can get. Not to say that there isn't stuff potentially in the apartment, but what you're going to be going through at this point is uh more like her personal effects, or you could go more into like what the papers are there at this point. So you guys have pretty thoroughly searched the place. But I mean, that's up to you. If you guys wanna dig around and look to see if you can find like maybe what she was working on. Like maybe go into like her computer and see if she was working on anything, or if there's papers that she might have been in the process of doing anything, business deals that she had. You guys can try to find that stuff. But like I'm saying, essentially the more time you're spending in the apartment, the uh, you know, six of you in, or sorry, five of you in the apartment, it's going to be you're essentially starting to leave more evidence of yourselves in there. If the idea is to try to not make an impression before the police arrive, you've done a pretty good job of keeping your signature light at this point. Up to you. Okay. Okay. Yeah, as far as you can tell, essentially once you get to the foot traffic outside the door, it's too difficult. What you are dealing is you're in an apartment. So there's a hallway, there's multiple apartments. This is uh, a high-end building. So there are like four apartments connected on the entire floor. So it's a good size apartment. It looks like most of the entire struggle happened within, essentially entering the apartment. So think about it like you're kind of coming in the entryway, and when you turn the first corner, that's essentially where the big guy was waiting. So it'd be kind of like, you've got the little table where you kind of set things down, have your mail, maybe your keys or whatever. And so it looks like she had some papers there, probably things that were delivered from Perry, because Perry did mention that when they got back, he was just like he was transferring the Leadfoot over to you guys, and you guys needed to come here for that. He was, transferring the rest of the captain's personal effects over to her. So it looks like, there was essentially the paperwork that Perry sent over, and then as soon as she walked in there, that's when that happened. Um, there was an indication that someone had gone through papers, but nothing was stolen. So, basically things were not in the order that she left it in. Um, that Yeah, I mean, if you want to pocket that paperwork, you guys can. Okay. Yep. So you pocket the paperwork, and essentially, if you're outside, essentially, you're like, well, the trail's gone cold here. I can look at the paperwork. Uh, the paperwork is essentially all of the assets and stuff that Perry is transferring over. A lot of it is stuff that just needs to be signed. Like here, you get ownership, so there's like the ownership of the building. It's papers that need her signature, things for her to review, accounts. You can see that the captain. There's one thing that stands out though. The captain in his actual bank account left Zai over 250,000 credits. So he left a good amount of just solid cash to her, plus the full ownership of his apartment. And you can see it looks like the captain actually had a few properties that he left her. Okay, sounds good. Again, you guys are free to look around, do what you want. Uh, you know, this does not look like from what you guys can piece together, it doesn't look like um, there. It doesn't look like the place was ransacked. It looks like more what they were after is they were after her physically, than you know. Uh, Nothing really looks disturbed as far as you can tell. Zai looks like she is a pretty orderly person. Her place is pretty neat and tidy. So any of the little things that are standing out stand out only in contrast to the order of everything else. Yeah, you walk through the various rooms. Everything looks to be dusted, well maintained, put away, tidy. Nothing seems to really be out of place other than where you saw the bit of papers on the floor and the bits and pieces of furniture shoved out of the way. So. All right, let's do this. It is 12 o'clock, so that is our halfway point. Let's go ahead and give everyone just a couple of minutes to, take a quick little break, and we'll go ahead and say 5 minutes. So I got 12:03, so 12:08. Give everyone 5 minutes to jump out, do what they need to do, grab a drink, whatever, and we'll meet up here in a few minutes and we can decide where to go next. Okay? All right. Sounds good. See you guys in a couple. Oh. Hmm. Okay. All right. You sent it on Discord? I don't see it. Right, I don't see it though. Oh, okay. Oh, you sent it a while ago. Okay. I don't know why it was marked as red. Uh, yeah, you could pick a different one. Do you have a thing where you could use Psychokinetic Hand at will then? Okay. So you could pick a different one then. There was a different ability there. Uh, m like message or whatever. Okay. Do you do you want to keep that then, or maybe keep projectile? Yeah, there's there was actually stuff on you had that minor psychic power as a requirement for some of the other stuff. No, I just put it as psychic power because there's minor psychic, there's psychic, and then there's major psychic. So I just listed it under psychic power, figuring that we'd put level one, level two, level three. Um, so let me see here. If I go to your racial abilities, Lashunta Magic. Gain the following spell-like abilities at will: Daze, Psychokinetic Hand, once per day, Detect Thoughts. Uh, you have Psychokinetic Hand and Daze at will. You get Detect Thoughts once per day. So let me see what the yeah, Daze is useful. I'm just wondering on that feat, minor psychic power. Uh, Telepathic message. I think you already have telepathic message because you have limited telepathy. So let me see how limited telepathy uh, compares with telepathic message. So give me just a second. I'll look that up. Um, Telepathic message. Well, telepathic message. Um, you can do 10 minutes per level and has a range of medium, which is 100 feet plus 10 feet per level. So you could use telepathic message for longer range. Whereas your limited telepathy, I think, is your I think it's like 30 feet. Limited telepathy here. Um, you can communicate with any creature within 30 feet with whom you normally share a language. Um, So basically, and limited telepathy means it's kind of difficult to communicate with multiple creatures at once, just like having multiple conversations. Um, you can send so the telepathic message is longer range. It lasts 10 minutes per level, and for those you use your character level as your level on it. So basically, you could have a 130-foot long telepathic conversation for 30 minutes. So, I mean, I guess that is kind of useful if you wanted telepathic message. If you already have the psychokinetic hand, though, I probably wouldn't do that. Or the other is the telekinetic projectile, which is Yeah, it's D6. You can fling objects up to 5 pounds, and it's 25 foot plus 5 foot per 2 levels. So tech no, so not as good as a gun. So I would say the only advantage of telekinetic projectile is if you were completely unarmed. I mean, you could use it, but you're only getting 3 uses a day. So I would say probably the telepathic message would be better if you're only getting 3 uses a day. Yep. So we can toss that one in there then. So let's see here. And we can get rid of the psychokinetic hand. Um, and we could actually just find that psychokinetic hand, and we'll toss it into level 0 at will. What was the other one you had at will? Uh, days. That's right. So yeah, we just toss those in there, and then once per day you had detect thoughts. Uh, yeah, yep, limited telepathies at will. So let's open this up. So we're gonna move that detect thoughts. There you go. So I just put it as a just a level 2, just because I'm just setting up how many times you get uses per day, and I'll put those under psychic powers because they're all essentially psychic powers. So you got 3 uses of telepathic message, um, 2 uses of detect thoughts. Let me see your spell level. We're gonna say you're level 3, so you get class level 3. And there you go. And what is it for Lashunta for your? Is it charisma? Okay. So there you go. So there you go. So you've got those set up. And then you still have your 3 uses a day of ghost sound. Yeah, with a D6, like I said, the only real advantage would be if he was completely unarmed. Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, so we've got that. Got the stuff tweaked out. Everyone's back now, I'm assuming. All right. And let's see here. Matt, are you there? I haven't heard you speak up. Okay, good. Oh, well, hey, we're doing all this talking. I can probably set it back. There we go. So as we're chatting with the I'll be back screen on. All right, so yeah, Captain got your psychic abilities all set up with their uses per day, all that jazz. Everyone else is good. So yeah, you guys have you're pretty confident you've pulled without digging into going into her places, or going into her place and looking at the areas that are essentially undisturbed and starting poking through her personal stuff. It looks like you've captured a lot of the gist of what you can get here. So I'll leave that up to you guys, depending on how deep you wanna poke around. You can either you've relayed the message back to Perry. He said he was gonna contact the authorities to come out. You just don't know when they're gonna show up. You could hang out. Gustav is looking through the panty drawer. Um, so yeah, you can give the papers back to Perry whenever you want. Kind of running down what you guys found here. A very large, like roughly 6'8", human male, a blonde-haired, average build drow, were apparently in the apartment at some point. Neighbors didn't see her running away, but they saw the big guy plodding down the hallway, yelling. The drow kind of giving a smile and a nod and moving on. Uh, Records of those guys being here, deleted. Everything, essentially, the security footage, everything looks very still. There's basically like no movement. She comes in. Uh, as she walks in, it essentially freeze frames, and about 2 minutes later, everything's messed up and she's gone. As far as you can find, no external connections. The system was essentially an offline security system, and it looks like someone managed to still get into it and erase the footage. Uh, who these guys work for, unknown. Who these guys are, unknown. How they managed to hack in here, wipe this information, who managed to do the hacking, again, unknown. There's a lot of questions, not a lot of answers right now. Perry says he'll dig into that stuff. You guys have the paperwork you can deliver to him. No clues on Zai's exact whereabouts, but it appears that she managed to escape the apartment, but no clue what happened to her after that. That's where the trail just gets too mixed up with other foot traffic. Um, had it been immediate, you probably could have followed the trail pretty well. Being able to turn on heat vision and go through and follow footprints, especially that big guy. You're pretty sure he would have left good footprints, but you're talking hard floors in a city environment. Um, there's not like a lot of like dirt necessarily or mud or anything to track through, so pretty difficult. And that's where we're at. Uh, Things that you guys can do going forward, like I said, you can visit Perry, drop him off the papers. Um, you can meet up with your contact at the Starfinder Society. You can deliver your cybernetics, which you were tasked at delivering, and receive your payment for that. Also, you can do any of the normal stuff that you would be doing on Absalon Station, including any shopping or anything you need to do. So, okay. So, we can. Do you want to go by yourself or do you want to go with anybody? Is any is it, so essentially when you have a contact that you're supposed to reach out to when you get on planet, and then when you reach out to them, they're just going to probably give you a meeting point to meet up and drop off the case. So it's just a matter of, do you want to, when you go to do this, are you doing this kind of like on your own, or do you guys want to do this together? And that's, I mean, you're the one that arranged it, so that's up to you. Okay. So you go ahead, step out, go make your contact, let them know that, just send over a quick, text message saying, "Hey, uh, I'm, I'm here on planet, or on station. I have your package," and they just give you an address to deliver it to. The address is fairly near the docking bay where you guys are You guys are where the ship is located, so you're talking it's only a few minute drive away. So if you're heading back to the ship, it wouldn't be anything to grab that and then head on over there to drop that off. All right, Captain's going, Gustav's going, Ghost One, Xano. Are you guys going with them, or are you doing something else? Well, you, I mean, you guys can essentially just ride in the car if you want. I'm just trying to figure out if you're essentially going that way, not whether you're going into the building or not. But at least are you gonna be heading that way with him, or do you have something else you want to do on station? How divided are you guys? Are you guys at least traveling together, or are you guys going off to do different things? Yep. Okay. Well, then traveling around with Cal is probably a good idea. All right. They just gave an address, so you won't really know until you get there. I mean, you could probably look it up. The address is it, it's just a warehouse. It appears to just be a place where goods are like a not like a warehouse owned by a specific company that houses only their goods. It's like a uh, no, like a third party warehouse where general things coming in, shipping and receiving. They'll just be things that are coming in off of ships get stored in the warehouse, and other people come in. I don't know what the exact term for that would be, but uh, yeah, it's kind of like a depot. Just it's just generally a storage area where you can rent a little bit of storage space or whatever. So and you're just told to meet somebody there. It's like an industrial park. Like there's going to be traffic going by, but it's not like on a busy main thoroughfare. It's off the side where there's a lot of traffic coming in and out from the landing bays that are in that area. But it's not where people would be. There's it's not commercial. There's no like real foot traffic of people just wandering by. Anything like that. It's all industrial. I mean, it's generally a place where there's going to be lots of vehicles pulling up and delivering crates, and picking up and uh, receiving and delivering constantly. So you guys are going to look like pretty much the normal traffic going in and out of there. Okay. Okay. So when you get to the warehouse, assuming that no one else has anything else that is going on, yeah. Okay. Yeah, someone I think what he's doing is he's looking for someone who's proficient in disguise uh to essentially help him program the disguise into it. So you kind of get to save a disguise check in it and then be able to pull that disguise check out later. Uh, yeah, disguise is a charisma, so that would it's probably most likely the captain, um, or maybe Xano would know it fairly well. Uh, cap, yeah, captain captain is quite skilled in disguise. So if anyone were to come up with disguise, the captain would probably be your best bet. But you can definitely tell Cal what it is and what you're looking to do, and he can kind of describe to you what you need, and then the captain's in the car, probably hearing all of this, so he can if he chooses, he could always jump forward and say that he's pretty well versed in disguises and can kind of help you come up with something. And then I would say he can probably take 20 on that. I mean, if you guys have time and you're not like instantly trying to do it, he could probably come up, sit there, go back and forth with you a little bit, take 20 and come up with some sort of realistic disguise that you can toss on. The, okay. Or program it to look like Zai. That, yep. I vote you make it look like Zai because that'd just be hilarious. That's a good disguise. Although it's not a good disguise if you're trying to go nondescript. Zai's an attention getter. So, yep. So that would most likely your um having the discussion. Uh, Zano says he could chip in. Captain says he's studied it a lot, so he'd probably be your best choice on that. Um, so what do we have here? Okay, yeah, delivering the package. So when you get to the warehouse, um, Cal, you notice something odd. Uh, the as you're coming in, uh, the there is what looks to be maybe a very young, maybe 10 to 12-year-old human boy standing there, and he says, uh, "Is that the implants I'm waiting for?" And he's like looking straight at you, and he sees that case, and he holds up a data pad and shows you the message from you. No, as you guys get there, he's basically standing kind of like at the doorway. To the you guys kind of pull into the gate, and he's at that doorway. Uh, as long as you roll it in the tower, tower it up. Cal, I mean, as far as you can tell, the kid's legitimate. I mean, um, Captain, yeah, the kid's sitting here like, why are these guys, why are these guys staring at me? Just kind of looking at you, like trying to figure out why you guys are staring at him. He's showing you the text message. He's just waiting to do his pickup. He holds out a he holds out he well it well it looks weird because he's young. He holds out a cred stick, and cred stick, he pushes the button. Cred stick shows it has 1,000 credits on it. That's the exact amount you guys were promised. But it's just weird because it's essentially a child that you're handing cybernetics to. So illegal cybernetics. Yeah, maybe. Okay. So you take the cred stick, hand them the case, get back. Are you dividing the cred stick amongst the crew, or are you keeping that for yourself? Okay. So let me go ahead and pop that on here. Where is my PC sheet? There we go. So we have 1,000 credits, and we divide that up. So it's 200 credits for everybody. And you guys have been paid. So yeah, you deliver your package. Everything goes smoothly. You didn't even need to walk inside the building. He essentially just met you out there, and um, you've completed that transaction. So yeah, now you're at that point where I mean, you've completed a lot of the stuff you had to do. You had um, you delivered your uh, experimental illegal cybernetics. You've um, met with Perry. He did give you the that invite to the Starfinder Society. Um, that's one thing that hasn't been finished up yet. You've gone to Zai's apartment. You kind of tracked down what was going on there. Perry says he's going to look into it. Uh, okay. Asking the kid about the gloves. He says he knows of them. He doesn't know. Um, he just kind of looks you guys up and down, and he says, "Give me a communicator ID and 50 credits, and I'll have someone contact you that has them." He's like, "I know of them, but I don't have any." He says he'll find somebody for 50 credits, and he'll have them contact you with a place where you can buy them. Okay. So yeah, it's Gustav wanted it, and he said he was going to go out with you, so he can just go ahead and pay him. So yeah, you go ahead and pay the 50 credits, hand the kid a cred stick, toss him 50 credits, and give him Gustav's communicator ID, I assume. Okay, and there you go. So someone will contact you. Uh, so yep, no problem. Um, um, okay, so I've got that down. So yeah, someone will reach out to you with where to pick those up. And yeah, so from there, like I said, we've kind of covered a lot of that stuff. The main things that you haven't done on station yet are the Starfinder Society. Plus, there's you guys are on Absalon. There's always a ton of stuff going on here. Um, Captain, you can also meet up with the stewards. You were you did your job. You were paid, but you can always look for other jobs. That's another possibility too. Okay. What order you guys want to do now? Are you interested in doing Starfinder Society? You want to check in with the stewards, or do you have anything else you want to do on station? Okay. All right. So, which one do you want to head to first, Stewards or Starfinder? Okay. All right. As you're, Starfinder Society also happens to be in the same area that Perry's office is at. He's on the essentially the outside of the Lore Spire complex, and the Lore Spire complex is where the Starfinder Society's at. So if you wanted to stop by there and deliver uh, the papers, I know Gustav said he had papers he wanted to deliver back to Perry. You guys could do that at the same time as well. Okay. All right. So, um, oh, what do we have here? So as you guys head on over there, you drop off the paperwork to Perry. Perry tells you that the police are have been contacted. They're investigating. He said, he doesn't really expect a lot to happen in the next couple of days. He's got his feelers out for this giant man and this drow to see what he can come up with. But at this point, he's basically just put the word out. He hasn't gotten anything back. As soon as he knows something, he'll go ahead and uh, reach back out to you. So, and he looks at it and he says that Zai had mentioned that people had been looking through her paperwork. That's when she noticed that someone was in her apartment because yeah, she keeps everything really orderly and tidy. And she noticed that her papers, which were in a very nice, neat stack, had been shuffled through. They'd been looked through, and no one had been in her apartment, or at least no one was supposed to have been in her apartment while she was gone. So that's what she had indicated to him, and so he's like, these are probably the papers that they were looking through. Um, he says he'll go ahead and have his aide look through and compare the two and see if there's anything missing. He's like, "Are you sure you this is everything that was there?" Okay. Yeah, he says he'll have his aide compare what was sent over, and then he'll message you in a little bit and let you know what she comes up with. Okay. So, with that, you guys are free to head over into the Lore Spire complex. Um, so the you have a contact in the Lore Spire named Alex, um, kind of like Alex but with an E, Alex. And uh, Alex is in the recruiting branch of the Starfinder Society. So as you get there, you're able to just kind of hand them the letter of introduction, and they ask you to wait for a few minutes. They offer you beverages, stuff like that. The Starfinder Society is just an amazing place. They essentially try to gather uh, all of the knowledge in the packed worlds. I mean, they're trying to gather information, especially pre-gap information. So they're just a huge uh, almost think of it kind of like a huge data center slash museum. They've got lots of interesting artifacts and old maps and different uh, cultural artifacts, different cultural uh, representations. They have paintings. They have all sorts of stuff. It's just a really super interesting place when you get in there. Uh, with th- yeah, it is pretty uh, it's pretty amazing what they have there. Just a really uh, again just amazing collection. Just there's history and exploration everywhere. Everyone that's in there, think about like a whole. If you had a gigantic uh, Indiana Jones data center, it's basically like you've got all the artifacts and all the knowledge and things that these guys have been gathering. Just really impressive. As you guys are kind of in this waiting room looking for this, a and a tall man with long black hair walks in, holds his hand out, and says, "I've heard a lot about you. I'm Alex. Pleased to meet you." And he shakes your hand, says, "Pleasure to meet you." And you are, and turns to you, Ghost One, Ghost Natural One. And yeah, he looks over at Xano, holds out his hand. All right, pleasure. Gellum looks over at you, holds out his hand. Ah, the captain. Fancy. And finally looks over at Gustav, hand out. There you go. Not saying a name. Okay, Gustav. Gustav. Pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet all of you. Ah, so I was talking with Perry, and he told me that you are a crew of a ship, and not only that, but you happen to be the crew of the Leadfoot, uh, good old Captain Vito's ship. I was friends with Vito, and I was terribly sorry to hear what happened to him, and I was very pleased to hear that you managed to, let's say, keep his legacy alive. With that, he kind of turns and starts walking, and just kind of like looks back to make sure that you're following. And he starts walking out. And as he turns and walks out, he basically kind of gives you the once over of, the Starfinder Society and who they are and what they're doing. He says essentially that uh, their goal, their mission is to explore and unravel the mysteries of the universe. He said it's plain the people who are curious, who love adventure, who love finding new places, meeting new people, exploring the unknown, uncovering lost relics, restoring our history, especially anything that they could recover that was before the gap. Uh, that is essentially the main goal and mission of the Starfinder Society. And he turns around and starts walking backwards and looking at all of you, and he says, "And to accomplish those missions, we rely on a lot of uh, individual uh, individual crews to uh, perform various tasks for us. For example, one of the main goals of the Starfinder Society is to make distant locations closer. Sometimes we find that there are unusual systems, maybe systems that have a great amount of lore and maybe lost knowledge. And when we find these things, one of our main goals is to pull them closer in. So what we'll do is we'll actually deliver beacons out to these systems that allow other ships to travel there faster. It allows it to be a lot safer. And sometimes these are very dangerous missions. Going out to the vast can be hazardous. So we rely on experienced, you know, hardy crews like yourself to do some of these tasks. For example, like I said, delivering those beacons, which allow ships, as we deliver more beacons to the system, as you very well know, ships can navigate to them easier. So we need to have multiple crews go out delivering beacons to bring these systems into the fold and make them nearer and easier to navigate to. And this is the type of thing that not only is rewarding on those aspects, but we pay well for. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to offer uh, my services to you. I know that you're just starting to learn these things, but I know that you've gone with Captain Vito in the past to deliver beacons to remote systems, so you're actually familiar with this task already. And knowing that, I'd like to offer you the same terms that I gave the good captain. I will go ahead and extend to you his the generous offers we've made him in the past to continue his good work. Sure. What do you want to get out of him? You want to try to? Um, yeah. Go ahead and roll a diplomacy check. Um, he kind of looks at you and uh, he says, "Well, the captain was a member of the Starfinder Society for 20 years, so he really did get about the best deal we can offer. I'm happy to extend you the same, uh, and I'm happy to bring you in not under a new crew, which would normally be making about a quarter of what an experienced member would be making. But I'm willing to offer you uh, essentially the veteran member pay for any beacons that you are willing to deliver for us. And if any of you want to become members of the Starfinder Society, I would put in the good word for you. So, yeah, he doesn't seem to be willing to budge on the price, and the price really he kind of goes into a little bit more detail that the price just varies based on exactly how many beacons have been placed before. So just so you guys are aware, this is something if you guys are traveling in the vast and you've done before, the vast can is different degrees of danger. So the when things are considered to be in the vast, it might be let's say like a maybe a 10 to 50% chance that something's going to go horribly wrong traveling there. That's that kind of like that random encounter chance that you get when traveling in the vast. So something that's really far out might not have any beacons is going to be closer to that 50% chance of mishap. Whereas something that is being closer, being brought almost to the near space, that's going to be closer to that maybe 10% chance. So it really just depends how far out you are. If you're closer to that, that highly risky, highly dangerous 50% chance, you're going to be obviously paid a lot better and more handsomely than, systems that might have a few dozen beacons and they're getting really close to being brought into essentially near space where there's very little chance of mishap, maybe that just a couple percent chance. So there you go. He's a natural. We're not saying a natural what, but he's a natural. So there you go. So yeah, he says what he would like to do is start off more towards um, the safer end of the spectrum. So he's offering you a uh, what would be considered like the near vast. It's a system that already has a good number of beacons in it, and it's being close to being brought into near space. And he would like you to take out a shipment of beacons and essentially take some supplies to an outpost that they have out there. And for the travel and the time and the risk, he's willing to extend uh, a 3,000 credit payment. Um, Yeah, no, essentially it's 3,000 credits. So out of that, you guys are going to have some. Yeah, sure. He'll toss in your expenses on it too. So when he says essentially when you come back to Absalon, he'll refuel you and restock your ship. So it'll just be straight up 3,000 credits for delivering beacons to near space. Well, delivering beacons to the vast, but a low risk fast travel. And he goes ahead and hands the system information off to you. Um, and you're able to kind of take a look at it, and you're seeing that it's it's that type of thing where you can never know what's going to go wrong. But with the information that you're able to glean, um, it could take even as much as a month to do. It could take a week to do. And that's to travel there. Traveling back is obviously uh, usually really fast. You can get to Absalon Station in less than a week from pretty much anywhere. So yeah, it could take anywhere from a week to a month, just depending on how uh, fate treats you when you do it. As far as the danger goes, it's relatively I mean it's a lot less secure than traveling to near space, but you've made missions like this before, and you've never really had any serious problems on them. So you're confident that you'll be able to go ahead and make the trip. But it's just the time involved that's the real concern at this point. So he has no. Yeah, he said it's available. He said you don't. he doesn't need it to be done right now. I mean, he understands that, it might take you a week to get there. It might take you a month to get there. They would essentially like to have this done sooner rather than later, but it's going to be however long it's going to be. So if you guys say, well, hey, we can't start it for another month, he might just go ahead and pass on it. But if you say you need a few days to get ready, that's not a problem at all. Like I said, it's he's looking at about he's basically estimating that you're not going to be back for a month anyway. So, and like I said, you could do it, and you could actually literally go there and be back in 6 days. It just depends on, the how the luck of the space lanes treat you. Okay. So you guys are free to do that. So are you he kind of just looks at you, so are you interested in the contract, or would you rather? Okay. He goes ahead and just and hands you essentially a data pad with all the information you need, and just says, "Look, it's your first job. I'll give you some time to get things in order. I realize you just got into station and you probably have affairs to settle. I completely understand. If you need a week or so to get things settled up, you have some time. But I'll I'll put it like this. If you can be back in less than he kind of like does some quick, number crunching in his head and looks down at you and he says, if you can get back in under 20 days, I'll throw an extra 1,000 credits in. So essentially, yep, yep, yeah, you can go ahead and it's more of a it's an organization, but it's not um it's more mentorship than rigid structure. So what they essentially try to do is they try to get people to join in, and when you join in, you get a mentor that kind of helps guide you through this stuff. Uh, Perry is already a member, so he is available as a mentor to you. But Alex as well. Alex is more on the like the formal introduction side. So Alex can be the one who can get you jobs, and Perry's probably more the one who would be getting you advice on what you can do, what you should do, things like that. It's not as much like a hard trade federation or something like that where you're going to be bound by all these contracts and laws and rules. They're very, you know, there's not a membership fee. What they do is if you're doing actual jobs for the society will pay you. Uh, and then what they'll do is they're asking you essentially when you find new discoveries, when you encounter new races, when you encounter these pieces of lore, rather than taking them and selling them on the market, to bring them back to them and let them compensate you a fair market value for it. So they basically just want first dibs on whatever you find. Yeah, usually, typically, if they're sending you out on some sort of a mission, they're going to be giving you access to that. You can also maybe do some research in their archives. Obviously, the ranks that as you go up the ranks and as you do things like as you start bringing more people in, recruiting people, and completing, more intense operations for them, they give you access into deeper levels of their archives and their knowledge. So. So basically, it kind of works like it's very fly by the seat of your pants and very democratic, where a lot of the members kind of they'll have certain people who are more like experienced members, and they're going to actually go through and vote on things, and then the people who are the ones who are more renowned are more likely to be elected to be the ones that are going to go vote on the actual movements of the organization. So it's not like a top down uh, oligarchy or bureaucracy. It's more of a loose assembly of people with similar goals. Okay. So he goes ahead and, if any of you want to become formal members, he goes ahead and offers formal membership. And he said you don't have to be a formal member to, complete the goals. It's just um, essentially to get access to if you want access to any of the special benefits and stuff, those are going to be offered mostly to formal members of the Starfinder Society. So. But he says, you're welcome to, or you're welcome to join at a later date, or not at all. It doesn't really matter. If you guys, basically he's offering you guys kind of honorary membership, to where he'll be able to offer you jobs because you were Vito's crew, and you've been recommended by Perry. But essentially, the Vito and Perry connection got your foot in the door, so you guys can still take jobs for them, regardless of whether you decide to be members or not. So you could decide to be a member of the Starfighter Society, or you could join other organizations. Like Captain, you're a member of the Stewards. As far as I know, there's no indication on, uh, you know, like you can't join both, but there might be at some point an obligation to, pick a side depending on what's going on. But as far as I know, there's no uh, the Stewards and the Starfinders don't typically, come into conflict often. Yeah, there might be occasions where it might be something like the Starfinder Society is trying to procure something that the stewards might not think is necessarily legal or appropriate. So yeah, that sort of thing might happen on occasion, but they're generally the conflict between the two is rare. So okay, so yeah, he goes ahead and grants you membership and kind of takes your information and adds it to the roster of members there. And like I said, anyone else, if you want to join in, go ahead and feel free to chime in. So, all right, so Ghost One, um, let's see here. All right, so I'm gonna pop that one on there. Okay. All right. Um, and then okay, Zano will go ahead and join. So you're gonna be Starfinder. Okay, so that leaves Cal out, but like I said, it's not required. Just if anyone wanted to be. Captain, did you want to join, or are you content just sticking with stewards for now? Um, I mean, yeah, you can always, if it came down to choosing between the two, and you had to make a choice between one or the other, you're free. Starfinder is very your association with the stewards is very lax. Like I said, you're not higher up. You're kind of more of a go-between right now. You're deputized, so you're not essentially a full steward officer. You're more like you've been brought in to assist them. Starfinder Society, same sort of thing. You'd be brought in as a low-ranking member, and with it, the only real advantage you get is might get a little bit more access than someone who wasn't a member would get. But other than that, not really too big. Later on down the road, I mean, you might, just like any organization, if you get deep into it, you might get people who don't look on you favorably if you leave, but nothing really worse than that. I mean, they don't like go out and murder ex-members or anything. So okay. So here we go. All right, so you guys, everyone who wanted to goes ahead and completes a membership application. You just give them all of your information. They add you onto the rosters, and kind of give you your, uh, your, yeah, you kind of once over intro. The rest of you are free to, kind of wander around the public areas of the complex and look at all the interesting things that they have there. He said if you manage to, deliver those beacons, and, make it back in a reasonable amount of time, he will, you know, he'll try to fast track you in the ranks to try to get you in. And like he said, you've got the, obviously if Vito left his ship to you and you've got Perry vouching for you, then you've got a little bit of clout behind you. So he'll try to see what he can do to help you go up as quickly as possible. And with that, yeah, you guys are essentially set there. So you have a job from the Starfinders. Um, you have Perry doing some research for you. You're waiting for your um, call back with the gecko gloves, and you're still trying to figure out exactly what happened to Zai and who those guys are. So that's kind of where we're at. Is there anything else you guys can think of that you want to do or take care of while you're here on planet or on station? Okay. So what Perry essentially, you leave after a while of exploring the Lore Spire complex and getting everything done. It, they're not. It's not like you're sitting down filling out paperwork for hours. They're very kind of lax on things. So it's just more, uh, you know, signing on the dotted line that you want to be involved in this, and them kind of starting to keep track of you more than anything else. You head on out, and as you're on your way out, Perry actually comes in to meet you. And as he walks in and starts to meet you, Alex kind of points out and mentions that a few of you have decided to join, and um, Perry seems to be pretty happy about that. He says that Vito would be proud. He always enjoyed uh, the the life on the wild side, and being a Starfinder really fit him. So having you guys kind of continue on that legacy it would definitely make him happy. He says to you that he still has his feelers out about the people, and he has not heard from Zai yet. Um, but he did want to bring in one sort of um, a concern of his. He said that Denegan, which is Denegan Vito, the former captain's brother, uh, appears to have uh, just disappeared. So not that he's um like you guys know that like, you've had lots of encounters with Denegan. Denegan was the type of guy who was always, on social media sharing all the cool stuff that he would do, everything. He's been radio silent since the events of the race. When he landed on station and found out that you guys beat him, the last thing you saw was the uh, you know the tattoo. You guys got to witness the putting on of the tramp stamp of Captain Vito's face on his on his back, and kind of the humiliation he suffered at that. And shortly after that, when he left uh, the planet, he has not come up yet. And Perry said, normally he wouldn't think anything of it. He wouldn't even care. But he also thinks that it's kind of interesting that Zaya's gone and Denegan's gone, considering that they had a lot of conflict between the two of them. And so he thought maybe if the trail has gone cold on Zai, you guys might be able to take a look and to see if you can find out where Denegan went to. He has no record of him landing on any of the Pact worlds since he left Verces. And he's like, I don't expect that you'll I don't expect that you'll like be able to know where he is, but maybe if you can keep an eye out on that, that seems to be kind of interesting that, he's not around when he's, it could be just too that, he might be just upset from the whole situation, but you know, the captain, yeah, that is true. Do you want to travel to Eox to meet with Zoe or try to meet with Zoe, or do you want to try to send a message? Okay. So you guys can go ahead and craft a message over to Zoe, saying that Zai has essentially gone missing, and you're wondering if he can keep a lookout for her. So okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, you guys go ahead and send out the highlight video. Uh, yeah. So that's essentially where Perry has it. So yeah, you guys basically have the freedom now to go do what you want to do. Do you want to, try to keep investigating more to see if you can track down more leads on Zai or Denegan? Do you want to try to, you know, rush out and see if you can maybe beat that 20-day that 20-day delivery time period for delivering um, these beacons and see if you can secure those extra credits, and then see if, while you're gone, if Zoe and Perry can dig up it more information. Um, I mean, it's really up to you guys. Okay. And actually, I was just pulling that up right now. So you get a com, and it basically has a request for 400 credits, and it just says gloves. So basically, it's got an account that you can transfer 400 credits to, and it just, it's simply just a message gloves with the information for transferring the credits. Doesn't mention anything about pickup or anything else. That's just all you have. Okay. You go ahead and transfer those credits, and then after that, you receive uh, a your package is ready for pickup notification, and it happens to be that same warehouse where you guys dropped the uh, the um, cybernetics off at. So, yep. And yeah, I mean, if you guys were heading out towards the ship, that's that way too. Did anyone want to send, I know there was some messaging going around. Did anyone want to actually send a message out to the plague rats? See if they could keep their ears open? You had 10 months actually. And that 10 months was started like, I think it was like 7 days ago. So you're like 7 days into your 10 months. Okay. Yeah, and he did give you that full amount of time. So if you guys want, I mean, you can just try to say as you're getting closer to that, yeah, that 10 months, do the 10K. He did make sure to say, I know that you're gonna need your money right away, so I'll give you a full 10 months to pay it. That was part of the deal that you guys made. So, mhm, there you go. Gotcha. Okay, that works. Um, yep. He does that one. He does that one often, and as essentially, so the Byzine run is something that that Zoe regularly shows off. It's essentially just a very dangerous run. There is not it's not like the glass relay where, you have to wait for these, heavenly bodies to align perfectly in order to make it in a certain amount of time. This is a very, very steady, a very, very stable, yet highly dangerous storm that happens on this planet. And essentially, there's a channel where the lowest wind speeds on this planet are like 300 miles an hour. But it's a very stable channel. So what they do is it started off as a kind of like a dare, young hotshot pilots daring each other to make this run to see if they could survive. And essentially Zoe found out about it and kind of sent camera crews over because people were literally doing this and dying and kind of popularized it, and now it actually ends up being something that he regularly sends over camera crews. So he's definitely interested in having you guys take place in it, but he's definitely interested in having anybody take place on it. The only thing that makes it more advantageous for you guys is you guys have survived, the essentially the game of death. So because you guys have survived once, there's going to be essentially more gambling and high, better odds and stuff. And the people will like to see kind of the same characters returning and defying death again and again. So he knows that he'll get better ratings on it than he normally does if he has you guys participating in it. But it's not a like this has to be done in 2 weeks or you can't do it. It's like he does it every month. Okay. Yep, the you can go ahead and you can take your time with it. It's a message being sent out. So if you wanna take your time and basically, essentially take 20 on it and, craft what you think is the best possible message to either of them, you can send one out to Zoe, one out to the rats, and like I said, Perry's already working on it on his side. Um, Unless you guys also, and do you guys want to include Denegan in any of this? Do you want to say that you think, do you want to say that he's, I was just gonna say, do you want to say that you think he's kidnapped her, or that it's a very odd coincidence that he disappeared at the same time that, she's essentially being assaulted? I mean, you can. That's the more eh, here here's the thing. The more information you give them, the the more useful it is if they are, um, let's say, if they're going to be on the side of helping you, but essentially if they're not on the side of helping you, the more information you give them, essentially the the worse it could be for you. So you have to decide how much you trust these people. Zoe is not known for being um, a kind benefactor. He essentially makes his living murdering people every day for money. He basically says, "Here's right, yeah, yep." So he happens to like the drow. So yeah, there is the entire possibility that it goes good or bad for you. With Zoe and the plague rats both. So it's just a matter of the more you give him, the more information you have, but also the more information he has. Hmm. Okay. So you're gonna send the general description. Yeah. Yeah. So when scrubbing through it, essentially what it looks like is there's no motion, no anything going on in the apartment until she enters, and you get about 10 seconds of her entering the apartment, and then it freeze frames on her. So it's not like, there's she didn't have any pets, she didn't have anything. There's no real wind or movement going on. So the image is incredibly, incredibly static until the point that, it kind of lights up when she walks in. And then as she walks in, just as she's getting to around that corner where you assume someone was, waiting for her, that's when the video kind of freeze frames. And then about 2 minutes go by, and after the 2 minutes go by, you just see the door left open, and the everything is disturbed, but nothing is moving. So, and similar with the plague rats, are you sending them the same kind of message? Yeah. So the plague rats are essentially they're one part smuggler, one part thugs for hire. They're not like they're not assassins, but they are muscle. And their biggest, I'd say they're probably about 80% smugglers and about 20% muscle, because they don't tend to like. I mean, they're all Yosoki. They don't tend to just kind of run in and physically threaten anybody by being a big, strong brute. They just happen to be like, there's 100 of us with knives, and then there's you. You know, they tend to be. Their threat is that they will swarm out of out of the sewers, out of the ventilation ducts, come in and stab you 100 times and then leave. And there'll be such chaos that no one will ever be able to trace where it went because they came in a dozen different directions and left in a dozen different directions. That's really how they kind of work. But that smuggling network means that they do have eyes and ears all over the place. So they are useful for kind of reaching out and seeing if you can get information. The downside is, though, that they know that their information is valuable, and sometimes uh, they're willing to take information that you give them and sell it off to other people too. So you have to assume whatever information you're giving them is something that you're willing to have be public, or at least you know known for the right price. So how do you want to proceed with the plague rats? For Zoe, I have that Zai was excited after seeing him. You wanted to know if he's seen her because she's gone missing, and you want to know that she's okay. And Denegan happened to kind of, it was odd that Denegan kind of disappeared at a similar time that she did, and uh, there was neighbors of hers said that there were a very large, like 6'8" man and an average size blonde haired drow that came, walking out of her apartment the night that she went missing. So that's essentially the info that we have there. So again, that's kind of what I have going out to Zoe. You guys can change any of that if you want, and then just want to know what you want to send the plague rats. Are you mentioning if they have any knowledge of Denagan at all, like where Denagan might be? Okay. So any idea of the whereabouts of Zai or Denagan, and any idea, you know, of two guys that match this general description that might be operating together on Absalon Station, around this time? Okay. All right. You can send that message out. Let's see here. We got. Hmm. Yeah, the stewards are essentially like they're more or less like the cops, but they're not uh they're more peacekeepers. 'Cause yeah, they're think about it like you got the Wild West, You have instead of the sheriff being all about I'm going to like punish jaywalkers or whatever, the sheriff's more like, hey, you guys stop fighting or I'm gonna lock both of you up. You're more like that. You're not as concerned with like petty crime because petty crime can be handled by local security. You're more concerned about essentially preventing violence and keeping people safe. So, um, so if you could always try to um put out that they are someone of interest, but you're still pretty low level, so you're not going to be able to necessarily put out a warrant for them. And if you did, you would need to have some, maybe some strong evidence. But you could say that they are, wanted for questioning. So if they're seen, you could also put out that they're missing, but although the local security might end up putting that out, but you can also corroborate. You could maybe look for any report that might have come out from local security and corroborate that, and then ask for it to be spread out, packed worldwide rather than just Absalon Station. Zoe or Zai? I know they're kind of similar, but yeah, they're not spelled at all similar, but they sound kind of similar. So okay, so you want to all right. So your person of interest, Denegan. How do you want to frame Denegan as a person of interest? Uh, okay, so you just put out Denegan is just wanted for questioning uh, regarding um a a lost person or something like that. Okay, and then you're going to put out a system-wide lost person alert. So you're going to kind of push the station-wide lost person and see if you can push it out system-wide. Okay, and that's for Zai. So you're basically sending like a photo and some general information on her. And then you also wanted to see if you could check the records and see if you can find out who those two guys are. Well, yeah, you might not be able to do a wanted for questioning, but you might be able to say that you had an investigation and there was two people with matching, these are the rough descriptions that a neighbor gave. And I mean, uh, technically, if you wanted to, you might be able to go like mind read the neighbor and see if you can get to like more of a picture. I don't know how that works. Can I wanna look at that really. It says, with each round of study, you can detect thoughts in a new area. So, I mean, I'd say if you can detect someone's thoughts and you have them concentrating on it and they're willing, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to at least get, I mean, you're not going to be able to get a picture, but you might be able to get um, like a really good description if you wanted to try to pass that way and see if you can do that. But also, depending on how much they saw him, because essentially she said the neighbor that saw him said she saw the big guy, and the guy was basically her big thing was he was really big and he was running down the hallway. She didn't mention anything of seeing his face, but she saw the drow's face pretty clearly. But she just described him as a blonde-haired drow. So you might be able to see him to the point where maybe you'd be able. Yeah, he smiled at her, so she clearly saw his face. Maybe you'd be able to recognize his face if you saw him, if you did that. Okay. You can put that one out. So yeah, if you want to head back to that apartment, you can go ahead and meet up with her and see if you can just question her and get her to be willing to do that. Okay. Anything else you guys want to do while you're at the Lower Spire complex slash? Oh no, you guys are at the docks area, right? Because you left Lower Spire complex. So yeah. Anything you guys want to do at that docks area before you head over towards where Zai's apartment's at? Okay. So Perry reaches out to you guys as you're traveling over to her apartment, and he says, "You know how you had me check on those papers to see if there was anything missing? Uh, there was actually something missing. Uh, there was a a property, actually. Uh, so one of the papers uh, detailing one of the captain's properties was actually missing from there. Um, it's uh, it was a um, just a small uh, plot of land on Akaton. As far as it was listed as undeveloped land. Uh, I mean, it might be large, but it was out in the middle of nowhere, so it wasn't like it wasn't like a house or anything like that. It's just like a basically a piece of undeveloped land in Akaton. But um, not particularly valuable. It's not like out of all the things that could be missing there, it's probably worth less than the money he had in the bank and transferred. So if anyone was looking to like steal something valuable, it would not be one of the most valuable ones. But that piece of land on Akaton, the deed for that was one of the few things that was gone. Um, let's see, how does that work? Um, I think. Where's travel? There we go. Travel. Um, so essentially the way it would go is you would end up trying to go back to Absalon Station because the Star Stone makes it very fast to travel back to Absalon Station. And then once you're in Absalon Station, you could travel quickly. You could basically say, once you're in system, hey, we've delivered this. And then you could travel to Akaton in a few days to get over there. So you could go deliver this stuff, and then you could go check out Akaton. You do have that 20-day period though of trying to get these things delivered if you want the extra money. If you don't want the extra money, then you can deliver it anytime. Essentially, he'd like to get it done in preferably within a month. But if you could take a month and a half, 2 months if you really needed to. So there's all sorts of ways to go. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to go to Akaton, I can tell you by standard travel, it is 2 days away. Then you'd have to actually find his property and however much time you spend uh, researching that out. So will it actually, stop you from hitting your 20-day mark and getting the extra money? Maybe. I mean, if you spend 2 days traveling there, then it takes you, you know, 3, 4, 5 days to find it. Yeah, maybe it will affect how quickly you can do that. But then again, maybe it won't. So the uh yeah, you've got it. So you got the location for it, but it's like I said, it's undeveloped land. It's not it's a large chunk of land, but it's not developed, so it's not high in value. It's basically Akaton is what's the best way of putting it? It's basically in a remote, dangerous backwoods part of Akaton. And that being the remote, dangerous backwoods part of Akaton essentially means that it's uh, not high value. So it's basically like a desert like a desert planet essentially. So it yeah it's yeah it's all right, it's so for the to give you the Earth equivalent, it's like if I said, hey, he's got five square miles of property in the Nevada desert. It's like a piece of property that the property itself is not worth a lot because there's no resources nearby. It's out in the middle of nowhere. But if you're trying to find somebody lost in that 5 square miles, it's not like you're going to be able to say, "Oh, I'm going to look for it in 30 minutes." So it's a low, yeah, you've got essentially a giant sector of land that to look in. So it's low value, but it's large. Eh, Yeah, no, getting there is not the challenge. I'm not saying getting there is the challenge. I'm saying you can get there in 2 days. You can get right to the property in 2 days. You've got to find what it is you're looking for when you get there. If there happens to be a ship parked right there, great. You get there and you throw on the scanners, you find a ship. If there's no ship and then you're just happen to look for maybe life signatures or something, well, there might be there might be all sorts of different life forms there, and there might be some that you want to find and some that you don't. So no, no, finding something of interest on the property is what would take a while. Okay. So it's in the vast. So it's 5D 6 days minus whatever bonuses for navigation we can pull off. So if you guys leave right away, you should be able to have it done, and you an average amount of time would put you right about 20 days. So if you're able to essentially get average, it would be about 20 days travel right now if you left today. So if you do better than average, you'll be back in less time than that. If you do worse than average, then you would end up being back later than that. And it's really going to be just random. So it was more he basically kind of ran the calculations and said, okay, this is average. This is what I would say the average time is. If I give them that, then at least they'd be incentivized dally around the station for 2 weeks if they want the extra money. So that's really up to you guys. I can't promise you one way or another. It's the whole drift engines are not a precise technology. It's you're just gonna have to activate it and then you'll find out as you're traveling. Yep, the extra 1,000, you get 3,000 regardless. But the extra 1,000 is if you decide to do it. Yep. Okay. Okay. Well, with that, if you guys are going to go ahead and do it's it's really just a kind of you've got multiple choices and there's pluses and minuses to each one. If you try to track down what's going on with this property, maybe it'll bring you closer to where Zai's at, but maybe it won't. If you go and do that, maybe someone else will come to you with leads, but maybe they'll come back and everyone says we've got nothing. It's really just a matter of, the only thing that you've got is and even if you do go, there's no guarantees you're going to get there in time. So it's really just a matter of what is the most interesting to you guys and what is going to be the biggest regret if you made the wrong decision. If you made the wrong decision on trying to find Zai, and let's say, oh well, you find out later you could have saved her, and you didn't, how are you going to feel on that versus you mess up something with the Starfinder Society. Let's say you end up coming back, so late it takes you, months to do it, and they decide they're not going to give you more contracts. Where exactly do your priorities lie? You really don't know what's going to go on, so it's just going to be coming down to you guys kind of jumping together and making a decision on which one you want to prioritize. Hmm. Yeah. Cal? Yep. And there are, yep. Yep. Right. The the Yep. So another thing just to point out too, just in general, if you guys are going out to the vast, there's generally a reason why the Starfinder Society is interested in pulling these places closer. So there are often things that can be done in those systems, opportunities, let's say. So, if you have things wrapped up here, then you've got more time to explore out there if you're out there versus if you go there and you make that long. I mean, it's kind of sad to make a what could be a 30-day trip to just turn right around and come back without, exploring that system or anything too. So there is that other kind of nudge towards if you do something in system and kind of wrap that up, and you don't have to come right back. You've got that kind of going for you. And typically that would be the way that you would work with the captain. He would end up taking these jobs. You go out and deliver beacons out to these systems, and then while you're out in the systems, the captain essentially would like to meet the locals, kind of socialize, figure out what's going on. And a lot of the shenanigans that you guys got into was just stuff that's happening out in these, remote backwater places. And often, um, taking materials out to these systems is profitable enough that you can turn a good profit. Um, you know, just off of showing up there and delivering some UPBs. So all of it's possible. So no real bad way of doing it. Just whatever you guys feel like prioritizing. So it sounds like yep. Okay. Well, it sounds like you guys are pretty set on going to Akaton, and it's 2 o'clock, so that's the end of our game. So I hope everyone enjoyed. So I've got tons of notes here, so I got all sorts of fun stuff that has happened today. Oh, I don't remember if we did cover this, but I know we were on our way there when we kind of got distracted and going in and doing this stuff. Um, so, uh, um, Gustav, your 400 credits when you showed up there, there was just a guy that with a clipboard, and you kind of gave him your receipt, and he came back and just handed you a package, and that package had those gloves in it. And then the last other thing I had for wrapping up here was Gillum, if you can just drop me a diplomacy check in the tower for letting that woman like essentially concentrate on that and get a mind read. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, she has no problem helping out. She said Zai was a very quiet and polite neighbor, never had any issues, and she feels really bad that she's missing, so she's perfectly happy. She kind of sits there and concentrates on it. Um, the guy, I mean, as far as you're concerned, he has no real distinguishing features other than, blonde hair, drow. He's very average looking. Um, uh, it's really even when you're looking through her mind, you can see his face. It's almost like you can't see his face. Like you think back to it, and all you can really think of is you can see his eyes and his smile. Um, so it's really just an unusual like it's not something that you've encountered before. Um, where someone was like that, where you didn't get a good sense um of their face afterwards. It's um all just kind of like a blur, if that makes sense to you. It's like you see his face, and then as quickly as you see his face, it's almost wiped from your memory. So, um, yeah, that's what you guys have. So that's pretty much it. Uh, well, congratulations, everybody. That was our game for today. So anyone that tuned in, thank you for watching, and we will see you next Sunday. Oh yeah.